How is it going, everybody? You're watching the Naval Tech, and today I'm going to talk about one of the most important iPhone features of them all, and just a few people actually know how to use it. In this video, I'm going to talk about Emergency SOS and Medical ID. So pay attention to this video, follow this step-by-step guide, and by the end of it, you have this on your iPhone. And trust me, this may save your life. So without further ado, let's begin. So first things first, let me show you how to actually use the Emergency SOS. And then of course, I'm gonna show you how to set up everything else like Medical ID and so on. So all you gotta do is grab your iPhone and then open up the Settings app and then scroll down and tap on Emergency SOS. And right here, you can see that you don't actually have to enable anything. It's already on by default. And there are actually two ways to use the Emergency SOS. And of course, it'll vary a little bit depending on your iPhone model. If you have an iPhone 8 or newer, all you have to do to activate the Emergency SOS screen, that one that I showed you a few seconds ago, is actually press and hold your side button and your volume down or volume up. You can choose, so it's going to be pressing and holding side button and volume up or volume down. It's up to you. So then as you press and hold both of them on any screen, on absolutely any screen, as you can see, you see right there the Emergency SOS and then your Medical ID as well. There's another way to activate the Emergency SOS, and as you can see right there, right below call with hold, which I'm gonna talk about in a second, which says call with 5 presses, as you can see. So if you enable call with 5 presses, you can also enable the Emergency SOS screen by pressing rapidly the side button 5 times. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then as you can see, you've got the Emergency SOS and a countdown will begin. Of course, you can cancel that because we don't want to call Emergency SOS right now. Now, if you have an older iPhone like this one, for example, so if you have an older iPhone, if you have an iPhone 7 or older, you only have the option to enable Emergency SOS by pressing 5 times the side button, all right? So you only have that option. If you have a newer iPhone, you can choose between the pressing and holding the side button and volume up or down, or press 5 times. So I showed you how to use Emergency SOS and how to get to the Emergency SOS screen, but you may be thinking, okay, but what exactly is Emergency SOS? Let me show you. So let's get to the Emergency SOS screen. So press and hold side button and volume down for a few seconds. And then as you can see, Emergency SOS. And in the middle, we get SOS emergency call. So if we slide all the way to the end and let go, and I'm not gonna do that, but if we slide all the way to the end and let go, what will happen is the iPhone will automatically call 911. But of course, it'll call 911 if you are in the United States. And this is so cool about the Emergency SOS feature, because every single time you get to the Emergency SOS screen, the iPhone will get your current location and it'll know in which country you are, and it'll call the correct emergency services number. So then if you are in the United States and you use the feature, it'll call 911. If you are in Europe and you slide all the way to the end, it'll call the correct number depending on the country you're in. For example, I'm in Brazil right now. Even though this iPhone is American, I'm using the United States region. The iPhone is in English. It doesn't matter, because since I'm in Brazil right now, if I slide that slider that you saw, it'll call 190, which is the emergency services phone number in Brazil. So this is so cool because the feature is smart. It'll get your current location and it'll call the correct number. Now let's move on right here in the Emergency SOS page. And as you can see, the first option says call with hold. And what's that exactly about? So you have the possibility, when this feature is turned on, to actually enable the Emergency SOS screen mode, right? So you're gonna press and hold the side button and the volume down or up. And if you keep holding, if you don't let go, it'll actually automatically call the emergency services and it'll make a sound. So take a look. So I'm gonna press and hold. I'm using the volume down, but as I said, you can use volume up as well, and the side button. So pressing and holding both right now. For a few seconds, I'm holding, and then as you can see right there, 7, 6, I'm still holding, 5, and then there's a noise. And of course, I'm gonna let go because I don't want to call emergency services right now. But then this feature will allow you to actually press and hold. And if you keep holding, it'll actually start the countdown. And if it reaches 0, it'll call emergency services, it'll call 911. And of course, that sound may be too alarming for you. And depending on your situation, maybe you want to call emergency services because there's someone stalking you or following you, and you actually want to call 911 in silent. Having that feature with that loud noise, maybe that's not what you want. But of course, you can disable that. So if you take a look here on the same page, and if we scroll down, the last option is countdown sound. So if we disable that, like I just did, there will be no sound. So again, I'm gonna press and hold, side button and volume down, keep holding, and as you can see, 8, 7, 6, 5, no sound, absolutely no sound. And of course, I'm gonna let go right now. But as you guys can see, it goes all the way to 0. It will start the call, but with no sound. So as you can see here, that's how to enable emergency SOS. So you know how to enable on your device. You know that you can use or not call with hold, that you can use or not call with 5 presses, and even the countdown sound that you can enable or disable. But of course, that's not it. Of course, we have to talk about emergency contacts and your medical ID because they are linked. Let me show you because this is super important and very cool. Your emergency contacts are a very important part of your emergency SOS. And that's because if or when you make an emergency call, your emergency contacts will get a notification saying that you have made an emergency call with your current location. So this is so cool. And by emergency call, I do mean you make the call. So if you do this, if you press and hold your side button and your volume down when you get to the screen, this is not the emergency call. This is just the emergency screen. If you actually go ahead and slide and you make the call, or of course you keep holding until the countdown ends and you make the call, that's when your emergency contacts will be notified. So let's set it up. Let's tap on set up emergency contacts in health. And then as you can see, that's where it'll tie to your medical ID. If you don't have your medical ID, you can set up right now. It's super simple. So tap on create medical ID. You put here your name, your phone number, date of birth, and of course, a ton of important information like medical conditions, medical notes, allergies and reactions, medications, blood type, and of course, height, weight, and so on and so on. And a lot of people may think, okay, but how is this important? And guys, this is important because when you have your medical ID set up, every single time you bring up that emergency SOS page, you'll get medical ID right there. And medical professionals like doctors, nurses, and even people that may find you in the streets after an accident or something, a lot of people already know this, so then they can easily get your medical ID if you are unconscious, for example, and they can check out all of that information. So it's super important to have your medical ID as well, and that's why it's tied to your emergency SOS. As you saw in the beginning of the video, as I enable the SOS screen, medical ID is right there, but I'm going to show you right in a few seconds as well. Okay, so I'm not going to set up everything right here just to make things faster, so let's just leave it like that with basic information. But of course, I do recommend that you set up all of the information, okay? And then right below, you see emergency contacts. So then you can add your emergency contacts, and then of course you put here your spouse, maybe your husband, your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, father, mother, your brother. So the people that you would like to get notified if something happened to you. Okay, and of course, as I mentioned, they'll get a notification when you make an emergency call with your current location and saying that you have made an emergency call. So those are the closest people to you that you want them to get notified ASAP if something happens to you. So go ahead, go through the list, and then add your emergency contacts. Okay, I'm gonna cancel right here, but of course, do it on yours. And then last option, emergency access, and that's what I was talking about. So show when locked. So then leave this turned on, so then even when your iPhone is locked, anyone knowing this can activate the SOS emergency screen and get your medical ID. All right, so then I'm gonna tap on next, and then information right there, and then done. So as you guys can see, my medical ID is on, is turned on. So then every single time that I actually enable my emergency SOS screen, I'm gonna do right now, pressing and holding, as you can see, medical ID right there, right on top of emergency call. And if I slide, I'll be able to see the information right here. You're seeing right here as well. So then I'll see all the information. So even if the iPhone is locked, no problem. Anyone will be able to check this information, and this information you'll want anyone to take a look at depending on your scenario. So that's it. That's literally it. Hope this video was helpful to you. Hope it was informative, and I do hope that you never, absolutely never need to use this feature in real life. But it's one of those things that we never expect to use, but we need to know, because if the time comes, this may actually help you or even save your life. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.